The member for Maylands.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm now in my 17th and final year of representing the people of the electorate of Maylands here. I came to this place in 2008 after a 30-year career combining work as a UN international expert in gender, hospitality, tourism and economic development, 7 years as a CEO of the Western Australian Council of Social Service and senior executive roles in the state and federal governments, and being an elected councillor for the Shire of Mundaring. I don't know what happened there, it was a bit of an aberration. One of the few remaining members of the 2008 election, I would like to thank the work that UU has put into keeping me here. I've tried to live up to the expectations of the members of my union at every step of the way. I acknowledge the other 2008 members who are leaving, the member for Thornley, Chris Tallentire, and the member for Cannington, Bill Johnson, and those who are staying, the Premier and the Deputy Premier, who's run off, both of them.
No, the Premier's here.
All illustrious colleagues, and while I have had many wins on behalf of my electorate and my constituency, I could have progressed more, I think, in my 17 years here. Nevertheless, I've learned a lot, and I leave this place as a very different person from the one who joined the Parliament all those years ago. The first lesson I learned, I was told you're meant to be funny in these speeches, so I'm going to give it my best, all right? And this is the only chance you'll get to have a giggle. Well, maybe not. The first lesson I learned was from one of my newly elected colleagues, just a few weeks after being elected. And firstly, given that we've got almost a full house, does anybody else like South Park? Yeah. You have any memories of the characters in South Park? Okay, that's going to help you with laughing at my story. I'm just warning you. Well, there's a Christmas character in South Park called Mr. Hanky, also known, aka a Christmas poo. Yes, that's right, a Christmas poo. Mr. Hanky was South Park's version of Rudolph, I think. They're pretty, unparliamentary, but anyway. When I received a Christmas card from the office of my friend, I immediately framed it, and it has held a place of honour for 17 years on the bookcase directly opposite my desk, because it taught me 3 remarkable lessons that I will never forget. And I'll show the members of this House the card because I brought it with me, and I'm going to honorarily present it to the person who gave it to me later out of sight of this House. Remember Mr. Hanky? This was a Christmas card that I got from my colleague. And the reason why I keep it is the 3 lessons it taught me is, firstly, don't ever run Christmas card design competitions with primary school students. Never do it. Secondly, never trust your staff to pick the winner in a design competition. Absolute bloody disaster. And thirdly, that I know way too much about South Park. So, and I just want to do that because I've always wanted to.
And can I just assure everyone that the member for Maylands sought permission for that prop.
Thank you.
And a couple more.
Still to come. Nothing quite as remarkable as that, but there you go. In 2008 to 2012, I guess I learned how to represent the people in my constituency and how to be an effective member in opposition, a role which I absolutely loved. Funnily enough, I probably shouldn't have. I probably should have wanted to be in government, shouldn't I? Anyway, good things come to those who wait. I was appointed to the Education and Health Standing Committee and as an acting speaker. I've continued to hold the role of acting speaker for 8 years until I was promoted to deputy speaker in my 3rd term. A great privilege, isn't it, member for Forestfield? I was also elected as a WA representative on the Australian Commonwealth Parliamentarians Committee, and I've been re-elected to hold this position continually over the last 15 years. I was then, nobody else wanted it, sorry. I was then been elected to chair the CWA in Australia for the whole of the Australia region. I secured a $3 million grant from the federal government to establish a new development program called the Pacific Women's Partnership, which linked Australian women MPs with women from the Pacific who are either candidates or elected MPs. It was a great program. I'm very proud of its success. But back home in Maylands, my focus was on improving the health of the Derbarl Yerrigan and the species that call the river and the wetlands their home. I challenged the lack of enforcement of speed limits on the river, the erosion caused to the banks from fast-moving craft and the growth of dangerous weeds along the riverbank and the wetlands, and the threat to migratory birds that come to the wetlands every year to breed and raise their chicks. I'm pleased to have campaigned with my community to stop the expansion of a ski area near this delicate ecosystem. Sorry about that, member for Belmont, you've still got it all in yours. In 2011, my community asked me to stop Coles developing a massive first-choice liquor store on a prime location in Maylands. I was a bit daunted by that at the time, I might say. Anyway, at that time, the Maylands Town Centre had a street drinking and antisocial behaviour problem. In fact, we were the second biggest problem in the state, next to Fremantle at the time. I'm sure Fremantle's much nicer now, but at the time we were both in trouble. I was the lead spokesperson providing the community case against opening this destination liquor store, at the Liquor Commission hearing when Coles was attempting to secure its required liquor licence, and when we won the fight, Coles appealed to the Supreme Court and we won again. This was an amazing journey and required a huge commitment from my office, and my sincere thanks to my staff at the time, Tessa Hopkins and Fiona Sassenfeld, for all their work on this campaign, and indeed on all the campaigns that we ran in my first term, which seems so long ago now. At the end of that term, going into my second, I'm proud to have once again teamed up with community leaders to campaign for the retention of the Carter's wetlands, adjacent to Eric Singleton Bird Sanctuary, and I was able to deliver from WA Labor a $1.5 million funding package to allow the City of Bayswater to purchase that wetlands and save it and protect it. From 2012 to 17, my electorate team was joined by two remarkable women, Jordan Rados and Rachel Macy. It was my absolute joy to work with these intelligent and insightful women as we once again were faced with yet another fight against big box liquor, and Woolies was attempting to redevelop the Peninsula Tavern into a Dan Murphy's in the middle of a residential area and on the border of a town precinct. I once again gathered the community evidence and fronted up to the Liquor Commission. They were getting used to me by now. I was on speed dial. And once again, we beat them. We beat them. I was recognised for my work in tackling the overconsumption of alcohol and improving the laws around alcohol control when I was nominated and became a finalist in the McCusker Awards. When WA Labor went on to be elected in 2017, the new Minister for Liquor and Gaming announced a review of the Liquor Act, thanks Paul, and asked me to contribute to the new legislation, which I believe now balances the need for cheap alcohol against the social needs of a region. I consider this a high point in my political career. The persistent problems associated with street drinking and overconsumption of alcohol still interfered with the amenity of the town precinct in Maylands, and councillors approached me again with concern. I got the help of Dr Paul Cousins, then at Curtin University, and we undertook crime prevention through environmental designs assessments across Maylands and then Inglewood. And I'm thankful for the support of the then Ward Councillor for Maylands, Catherine Earhart, and the staff of 55 Central Community Group. They have a homeless shelter, yeah? And we worked together to gain the funding to implement the main recommendations from that Maylands SEPTED report. Back to the Parliament, 2012 to 17, I was appointed the chair of the Office of the Commissioner for Children and Young People in the wake of the Katanning Review into child abuse. Those of you still in this place from those days will remember that horrific time. The resulting report we delivered argued for more funding for the Commissioner, a one-stop shop for children experiencing abuse, and the appointment of an ATSEC Deputy or Commissioner. All of these things have now come to pass. In 2015, still in opposition, the never-ending story, I made history in the Legislative Assembly by carrying a motion recommending a free vote on marriage equality in the federal parliament rather than a plebiscite. I also pushed the City of Bayswater to publicly display its support for marriage equality. 2016, I called on the WA government to resolve what was an embarrassing blemish on our moral obligations to a community which I am part of, the rainbow community, the LGBTIQA+ community. Thanks to Dave Kelly for his heads up on this issue at the beginning. When we were elected in 2017, we expunged any remaining records for people convicted under the archaic WA sex indecency laws and issued a public apology to the families affected. 2018, I advocated for reproductive rights for the rainbow community, asking for changes to Human Reproductive Technology Act and the Surrogacy Act to give same-sex couples equal access to reproductive technology and rights. I supported the Gender Reassignment Bill in 2018. I have consistently used my role as an MP to advance LGBTQIA rights and representation in WA. I've always found talented people to work with me in my electorate office. Fran Hickling is a WA Labor treasure and deserves the love and respect of all who are lucky enough to work with her. Thank you, Fran, for being my friend. And to the wonderful Toya Shakespeare, who applied all of her journalistic skills to keep my work well profiled in the electorate. Toya, I know that you were required to navigate your way through many situations that were unexpected, to say the least. You did this with generosity and respect. Now, specifically, I recall, she won't want me to tell you this, but I specifically recall when a treasured constituent showed us his video of his journey through prostate cancer treatment. I'm not making light of his journey, and the educational content of this video was supreme, but I will never forget the look on Toya's face when she realised what she was watching. During my third term as a Deputy Speaker, I was also appointed to the Procedures and Privileges Committee, way too many P's in that sentence, sorry, to deal with matters referred to by the Legislative Assembly and general issues of procedure and integrity in the LA. This was an honour. At this point, I want to sincerely thank all of the parliamentary staff who have provided advice and got me out of trouble and supported my work over the 4 terms of my appointment to this position. In the lead up to 2017 state election, I secured support from the Minister for Education to redevelop John Forrest Senior College. We've spent more than $50 million and now have a college that is contemporary, well-resourced and a real community asset we can be proud of. In 2019, I supported the passage of WA's voluntary assisted dying laws. Thanks, Member for Morley, for all your work on that, Minister. This was at times an extremely painful and difficult debate, and there were many tears shed in this place as stories were shared and truths were spoken. The passage of this law took compassion, courage and deep commitment. For Maylands in 2021, I delivered Labor's commitment to fund the establishment of the first urban forest in WA along the banks of the Swan. Fran and I have been joined in our electorate by a savvy and smart local business owner, Blaine Campbell, as my research officer, who shares the role with my best friend and confidant, Liz Lennon. The latest member to join my team has been Dan Hobley, and I can say on behalf of all the team, we love having you in our team, Dan. You're passionate and kind and bring a great synergy to the team, to the team, and a range of really dreadful new dad jokes. He's about to have a baby. Well, his wife is, and he's practising. They're just dreadful. Anyway, in my third term, I was appointed to the Education and Health Standing Committee as Deputy Chair, with my wonderful friend and colleague as the Chair, the member for Thornley. We were commenced an investigation into the Esther Foundation, and one of our findings recommend the WA Government ban all practices referred to as sexual orientation conversion practices. I've repeatedly called on my leaders to implement a whole-of-government model to address LGBTIQA+ issues and to move immediately to complete other reforms necessary for equality in this state. But there are 2 special areas where I've spent enormous effort to enlist support and change policy. The first is in pursuit of the rights of animals with whom we share this planet, and the second is in tackling the global climate crisis. Props. These 2 guys were with me when I spoke at the WA Labor conference and had the Stop Puppy Farming policy and pretty much endorsed by the then leader, Mark McGowan. So they've come along to say goodbye. There are many milestones in relation to improving welfare outcomes for animals. The first action, I took when elected, breathing,
Don't take your time.
was to invite the key stakeholders in WA to my home. And I listened to what they said about animal welfare in WA. And I formed my first set of priorities based on their input. In 2010, I co-convened with then the Joe Francis, Liberal member. We co-convened Friends of the RSPCA WA and the WA Parliament. In 2012, I wrote and released the first of many papers advocating for the establishment of an independent voice for all animals in WA, an independent office for all animals. And I just have a little quote here from what was the Australian Animal Welfare Strategy the federal government had in place. It says, a large body of evidence and research shows the most effective regulatory regime for improving the care and protection of animals is a regime free from conflicts of interest and regulatory capture of agriculture and related agribusiness. Placing the Animal Welfare Act into a robust and independent administrative structure frees it from conflicts of interest and ensures public expectation is matched to industry practice and improved animal welfare outcomes. Animal welfare policy involves consideration of what are acceptable forms of animal use and interaction. The role of this independent body is then to set these boundaries and work towards progressing them. In 2015, I wrote WA Labor's discussion paper, Strengthening Animal Welfare in WA, and Mark McGowan launched it for consultation. He was then the leader of the opposition, of course. 2015 and 16, I ran many public forums to gather responses to the discussion paper, and then I wrote WA Labor's Animal Welfare Platform, which is adopted by the 600 delegates to the WA Labor State Convention that year. Among other contemporary themes, this platform currently commits WA Labor to introduce laws to stop puppy farming, to introduce an independent office for all animals, and to support the federal government and farmers to transition out of live export. 2016, I ran the first public forum in WA into animal law and sentencing provisions. The presenters featured Judge Stephen Hall and Alana McTiernan, who was the Minister for Agriculture at the time. When WA Labor was elected in 2017, Stop Puppy Farming was a key election commitment, and I believe to this day it remains as the election commitment garnering the highest level of public support of any policy in modern history put forward by WA Labor, if you're interested in stats. 2017, I hosted the first Saving Lives event in the WA Parliament. This annual event is unique in Australian Parliament and recognises and celebrates the work of volunteers in rescuing and rehoming animals. 2017 to 19, I co-chaired a greyhound welfare working group for the Minister for Racing and Gaming. Again, thank you, Paul. If you are not aware, the WA taxpayer funds a significant amount of greyhound racing and hence the gambling industry. It remains my firm position that this industry is outdated, is inhumane and is unsustainable, and WA should simply stop racing these gentle, kind animals. In 2019, I lobbied to initiate a review of the WA Animal Welfare Act. The review started in 2019, was completed in 2020, but it is still in Parliamentary Council waiting to be drafted into a new act. 2011, the illegal trespass laws passed Parliament, containing our amendments that improve the powers of general inspectors to conduct audits of intensive food production facilities and improve the oversight of animal welfare in these facilities, a measure which should strengthen farmers' confidence. My proposal to establish the WA Animal Welfare Grants Program was accepted, and this new grant program has distributed $3.2 million over the last 4 years, supporting animal rescue and rehoming across the state. The Stop Puppy Farming Act eventually passed WA Parliament in 21 and became law, and I'm pleased to report that after too many delays, effective rollout of the provisions has now commenced. Thank you, Minister for Local Government, Hannah Beasley. This Act almost immediately in 2021 removed the requirement in the Dog Act for retired or unraced greyhounds to wear muzzles in public. In that year, my colleague, the member for Forestfield, and myself convened Friends of Greyhounds group in the WA Parliament. 2022, the Australian Alliance for Animals launches, and I invited the leaders to WA to conduct a forum to set future priorities for animal welfare in WA. The forum boasted representation from all across that spectrum of stakeholders, including live export industry members, farmers, vets, local government mayors, rescue groups, RSPCA and many others, and resulted in 33 industry stakeholders signing a letter asking the then Premier to move forward with the Animal Welfare Act as a matter of priority. I'm very sad that this has not been achieved while I've been in this place, and I urged now wonderful Premier to publicly commit, did I sound like I was brown-nosing then? To publicly commit to making the passage of this bill a priority in a new Parliament. 17 years ago, when I first mentioned animal welfare in the Labor caucus, I was asked what was meant by the word sentience. Ponder that for a minute. WA Labor has indeed come a long way since those early ignorant days. Over the last 2 terms while in government, I've proudly and successfully forged an informal Labor caucus that's cross-factional and highly committed to achieving improvements for animal welfare in WA. I owe this group of individuals so much for their support and passion in response to many heart-wrenching and painful issues brought to the table. I continue to make submissions to relevant stakeholders, for instance in working with vets and academics to pursue the banning of tongue ties, which are used by the racing industry and effectively tie a horse's mouth down with a string or a plastic tie or a piece of stocking. I've repeatedly asked for a review of the codes under which rodeos are run in WA, and I've asked the state to stop funding rodeos who continue to use animals under 250 kilos in weight, that's calves or sheep or the like. That's best practice globally nowadays. My advocacy to West Farmers on behalf of wildlife care groups, including Geo Bay Wildlife Rescue, a group which I'm patron of, has delivered success with Bunnings agreeing to cease the sale of glue traps. However, rodenticides, 10 and 1080 are dreadful poisons, and they are still used daily by our government departments. Shameful. I worked with the Minister for Agriculture's office to secure funding for WA's Vets and Community Care charity to pilot the first veterinary social work project to address workforce issues and mental health issues in that profession that are creating a high turnover and an unacceptably high suicide rate for vets. More than 12 years ago, the Liberal National Government banned Animals Angels from the Fremantle port. We were talking about ports yesterday. They had provided professional and highly skilled education to the industry on the best treatment for livestock being transported and waiting for export. I've continued to advocate to have Animal Angels reinstated in this oversight role, but I have not been successful to achieve this. To me and my supporters, this is not acceptable. My second passion is to address the climate crisis, which is the new label for the state of the planet we live in. I've been working to raise the profile of major pieces of policy currently missing from our climate action plans. I've spoken to the Minister about this. Within the next 25 years, the fact is, and it is a fact, the world's population demand for food, and specifically protein, will not be able to be met by the conventional food production system, which contributes up to 30% of global greenhouse gases. After the recent USA elections, the horizon for global supply chains and food production is now more insecure than it ever has been. Farmers and industry at all levels of this supply chain urgently need us to help them. Food system transformation is a critical part of the solution to tackle the climate crisis, and it's been recognised by COP27, by COP28 coming at the end of the week, and by the majority of global governments, including Australia. The development of complementary proteins is a significant solution to both future global protein demand and our existing climate crisis. I just realised I'm running out of time. WA is a gateway to APAC, the largest growing protein demanding population for conventional and complementary proteins. We as a government need to invest more in developing complementary protein sector. Victoria and Queensland governments are leading the way in terms of their strategic investment. In 2024, just a few months ago, the Queensland Government's Greater Whitsunday region issued this blueprint for development. This region is Mackay. It's 60% coal dependent, 60% coal dependent. Let me read you, and this is now their new future. It's called biomanufacturing. Imagine that. Biomanufacturing. Their new blueprint aims to establish a biomanufacturing industry base, leveraging their competitive advantage, which includes access to feedstock, listen carefully, precinct development opportunities, supporting infrastructure, transport, supply chain and utilities, and a dynamic workforce development. Anybody else thinking collie? I am. We have a huge opportunity in this state, and we are not working on it. Our government needs to do more. I've clearly defined what it could look like in my food system transformation report. We have a responsibility to future generations, not only to acknowledge the global climate and food crisis we create, but to work together and to have the courage to support new alternative solutions. Now, I'm going to leave this topic with the following words from Sir Winston Churchill, and he made them in 1937. 50 years hence, bit out with the timing there, but 50 years hence, we shall escape the absurdity of growing and killing a whole chicken in order to eat the breast or wing, by growing these plants separately under a suitable medium. Winston Churchill got it in 1937. I'm forever in debt to the Maylands branch members who have worked so diligently and so passionately to make sure that myself and WA Labor was successful over 4 elections. When I leave this place and leave my electorate, I'm confident that I'm leaving in good hands. WA Labor's candidate for Maylands, Dan Bull, is the former Mayor of the City of Bayswater, councillor for the City of Bayswater, husband, father, lawyer, musician and my friend. I wish him well when he contests the seat of Maylands, and I know that I've done everything I can to ensure that Maylands is a vibrant and cohesive community that will welcome him with open hands and no doubt with his guitar at his side. You know he was with Eskimo Joe, that's his musician, yeah. I must also thank my friend and sometime councillor, the federal member for Perth, the Honourable Patrick Gorman. When I have been exceptionally frustrated or disillusioned with my work, Patrick has been my sounding board. Patrick, you're an amazing person and your advice has been accepted with gratitude and trust. And as all of us in this place know, trust is a rare thing in politics. Thank you so much, Patrick. I'm looking ahead to where my next challenge will take me. As a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors, I'm keen to apply my expertise in governance and ESG, particularly as it relates to sustainability and climate crisis. I'm a founding member of a group called G100 Food Systems, Innovation and Resilience. A global group of women committed to transforming the world's food system to ensure sustainability of humanity, animals and this planet. I have a couple of final words to say. The first is to make a request that on the Monday after the state election, would you guys text me, because I'm terrified of separation anxiety. I really need you to phone me. Thank you. And I think I'm going to finish with a quote from my favourite modern poet and songwriter when he was asked what his opinion was about hope, particularly when people despair of the world or of each other. His name's Nick Cave, by the way. He replied, "Hope is the defiant and dissenting spark that refuses to be extinguished. Unlike cynicism, hopefulness is hard-earned and makes demands on us, and can often feel like the most indefensible and lonely place on earth." Nick talks about radical optimism that believes in the insubordinate nature of hope and is forever at war with banal pessimism and cynicism. Hopefulness is the warrior emotion that can lay waste to cynicism. It says the world and its inhabitants have value and are worth defending. I leave this Parliament with hope and a radical optimism for the future. Goodbye and good luck. I didn't enter it. Anybody wants to know who did this? Bill, thank you. Oh, mate. Thank you. Oh, mate.
Just while people are still congratulating the member for Maylands,
Thank you.
I will advise that I have received a message from the Governor, Governor's message number 33. The message sends to the assenting to the bills for the following acts: Retirement Village Amendments Act 2024, the Industrial Relations Legislation Amendment Act 2024, the Key Start Act 2024. The Minister for Education. The question is that motion be agreed with. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those to the contrary? I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
What time do the officials go to the Okay.